Ayan. Hi, everyone! Okay, 10 minutes are up, so we're gonna call you back for your presentation. I'll start recording again.
Recording in progress.
Hi, everyone! Welcome back.
Ayan. So welcome back everyone. Mag-umpisa na po tayo sa ating mga presentations and discussions. At ang pinakauna mag-represent po sa atin ay si Sir Mel Kasipit. Representing, tama ba? Kalibutan. Okay, sige po. Okay. Sige po. Ayan, baka mag-murder tayo ng mga pronunciations ngayon. Sige. So, Sir Mel, if you can share your screen. Okay. Ay, kasalanan ng website.
Congratulations! Swerte.
Oo. Sana may prize for first. Diba?
Ako para matong gusto nang matapos na maaga. Anyway.
Okay. Again, good afternoon everyone. So, ako yung representative ni Randy Valiente. So, meron siyang kasing meron siyang lakad today at hindi niya na i-schedule yung meeting kaya ako na lang yung pinapunta niya. Pero nabasa ko na yung yung pitch niya tapos yung pitch ni Randy Valiente about lalang kalibutan. Ang simula ng daigdig ayon sa mga Bisaya. Ayan. So yung book na gagawin ni Randy ay 2 parts. Yung unang aklat, history siya ng ng mundo ayon sa mga Bisaya. So para siyang alamat nung kung saan ang galing yung sun, moon, stars. Yan. So bale tapos yung second part naman, ito yung part na yung history kung saan galing yung mga tao naman. So yung unang lalaki at babae, tapos kung bakit magkakaiba yung kulay natin, tapos kung bakit nagkahiwa-hiwalay yung mga tao sa mundo. So bali yun yung pinaka-summary nung kwento. Ayan. Tapos ang aklat ni John Maurice Miller na Philippine Folklore Stories ang pangunahin niyang pinagbatayan sa kwento. Meron siyang ebook na pinagkuhaan. Nandito siya. So Philippine Folklore Stories, publication date 1904, Boston Gym. English yung yung language. So nagkaroon lang ako ng palaisipan, parang yung sinabi ko kanina umaga, dahil ayon sa kwento ni Miller, si Magwayen ay lalaki ngunit may mga kwento rin akong nabasa na isa siyang babae. Mayroon ding mga kwento na may romantic relationship sina Kaptan at Magwayen. So sa story, mag-asawa silang dalawa. Tapos meron silang mga anak. Tapos dun sa first book, nag-aklas yung mga anak nila. Yung mga anak nila si Likalibutan, Earth, Liadlaw, Sun, Libulan, Moon, sa Kalisuga, Stars. So bali nung nag-aklas sila kay Captain, yung namumuno sa heaven. So bali namatay silang lahat, na dead sila. So sila yung naging araw, buwan, bituin, saka Earth, sa mga islands. Ayan. So doon sa part 2 naman, kasi pinatay ni Captain yung mga apo niya, yung mga anak niya. Nagsisi siya sa bandang huli, tapos pinigyan niya ng seed si Magwayen, yung asawa. Tapos sinaboy sa buong mundo. Bale tumubo siya, doon tumubo yung kawayan, tapos doon nagsimula yung unang babae sa lalaki. Bale yung second book siya, story ng pag-aaklas actually, yung parang nung nag-aklas yung mga tao sa mga gods, kaya pinarusahan sila ng mga gods, kaya sila nagkahiwalay-hiwalay sa mga mundo. Ayan. Ito yung mga sketches ito yung mga studies sa pages na ginawa ni Randy. Ang gaganda ng mga artwork. cover page. Tapos ito yung mga design na pages na ginawa niya. Ang kasal. Ayan. At watercolor traditional saka I think digital yung iba dito eh. Tapos hinahaluan na lang niya ng traditional or both. Ayan. Tapos ito yung mga thumbnails. So para may idea na kayo kung paano siya gumawa ng flow ng story. Actually, marami ng experience si Randy sa pagko-comics kaya tingin ko maganda na yung magagawa niya eh. So, ito yung mga sketches na thumbnails na ginawa ni Randy. Kaptan at Magwaye yung page. So ito yung mga inside pages na ginawa niya. So basahin natin, kunwari. Ako si Kaptan, ang Diyos ng Kalangitan. Ako ang hari ng lahat ng Diyos. Kunwari ako yung boses. Tapos ito yung mga pages. Ang gaganda ng mga pages. Nung una ko tong nakita, sobrang nagustuhan ko kaagad eh. So for sure, maganda yung kalalabasan ng buong book pag natapos to. Tapos ito si Magwayen. Siya yung Diyosa ng karagatan at tubig. Yan, ang apat na anak. So ito yung mga thumbnails nung nung mga ginawa ni Randy. Ayan. So ito yung mga sketches. Ayan. So mga studies sketches. So bali, yun, doon na nagtatapos yung pitch.
Okay, maraming salamat, Sir Mel. So just for everyone's information, Sir Mel, gaano katagal na si Sir Randy sa industriya?
Matagal na kasi ano pa siya eh. Naabutan pa niya yung old industry.
Ah,
I think ano siya, 80s nagsimula, late 80s. Tapos very active siya nung 90s.
mm.
Sa paggawa ng comics. Nagsulat din
Mm.
siya sa Precious Hearts Romance na
Mm.
naging writer din siya doon.
Oo.
Tapos nag-storyboard din siya tapos ng mga concept art sa Dayo. Sa isa rin siya sa gumawa yung animated film.
Mm. So kumbaga siya yung isa sa mga hasang-hasa, hindi lang sa pagdidibuho pati na rin sa pagsusulat. Oo, talaga ang sarap tingnan yung mga pages niya sa totoo lang. Will these be in color ba? Kukulayin ba niya yung mga ito?
Hindi niya nasabi sa akin eh, pero based on dito sa kahit walang kulay, magaganda na.
Actually, yun nga.
Pero yung
Kumbaga
definitely colored yan. Maganda yun.
oo. Oo. Pero kung ano yun nga, parang syempre parang it would be nice kung may time, sana kung may time yung parang lagyan ng kahit like wash man lang, para lang 'di ba, yung ganon, para lang may konting ano. So siguro nga yung would you know kung bakit ito yung napili niya sa dami-dami ng kwento?
Kasi si Randy taga Romblon.
Oh.
Bisaya talaga yung lineage ng family niya. Actually, ako, yung nanay ko taga Romblon din. Kaya
Oo.
magkababayan yung mga namin families. Ayan. So, siguro, naisip ni Randy na kailangan niyang i-represent yung kung saan siya nanggaling. Tapos ito yung kwento na kinikwento doon sa Bisaya, kung saan nanggaling yung kung paano nagsimula yung mundo, yung araw, buwan, bituin,
Oo.
paano nagsimula yung mga tao.
Oo. Yeah, so what I like kasi about this story kasi is like yung parang kumbaga kumpleto na siya, beginning, middle and end. Kumbaga I don't think na may dinagdag si Randy dito, 'di ba? Parang kung ano yung kwento yun na yun. Oo. So at least yung meron siyang convenience na ganun. Ngayon pagdating sa designs, kasi 'di ba ang ganda-ganda ng mga designs niya ng mga characters. Gaano kalaking liberty ang ginamit niya sa pagdidisenyo ng mga characters? Ano sa costume ganyan or meron ba siyang pinagbasehan na mga traditional costumes natin?
Hindi niya nabanggit sa akin eh. Tingin ko mga based on the experience na rin niya sa pagko-comics, kung ano yung dinodrawing nila noon saka sa mga concept art. Yun doon na rin
Okay.
siya nagbase. Pero definitely hindi ko alam kaya
Oo. Yeah, it's okay. Oo, kasi if it parang kung kaya, parang it would be nice na parang kompletos recados, 'di ba? Pati yung sa costume kasi 'di ba? Napakadetalyado kasi mag-drawing si ano at least dito, 'di ba? Napakadetalyado. So kumbaga parang it's a great opportunity to showcase nga those details ng ng actual costume kung kaya. Kaya that's great. So at this point parang does anyone among the grantees or even the organizers, baka naintriga kayo, baka meron kayong mga questions or anything
Ako
about
siguro,
this project?
oo. On my end kasi 'di ba yung from earlier, identify lang kung saan yung references ng visuals. Kasi aside from the story, we're also looking at how the development went in terms of, the visuals nga. So identifying ano yung reference niya for yung mga accessories and all that stuff. Aside from his concept, meron ba siyang pinagbatayan talaga. So yun lang on my end, just asking. Baka that's something that we need to put in or include in the notes. So yun.
Oo. Anyone else? Kung may tanong kayo, you can always place in the chat box. Kung may kayong comment, kung gusto nyo mag-express ng supreme admiration.
Siyempre, so Randy Valiente yan sa admiration.
Oo.
Pero na-intriga lang ako doon sa font. Ano siya, parang ginawa mismo ni Sir Randy yung font.
Alin dito sa hindi
Kasi
parang ganda nga parang custom font to.
yun nga kasi parang mukha siyang custom font talaga. Parang tuwa doon sa itsura.
Oo. Oo. Konting ingat na lang sa sa legibility lang kasi pag naging sobrang maliit siya, especially dun sa mga tao na hindi familiar sa mga names, 'di ba yung ganon? Baka magkaroon ng konting confusion yung ganyan. Kung ganito kalaki bilang display font, carry lang 'yan, pero pag lumiit na siya, yun yung siguro Oo, lalo na dun sa Captain and Magwayan, which is very interesting kasi 'di ba, minention ni Randy sa kanyang pitch na yung sa research niya Magwayan, merong Magwayan na lalaki, may Magwayan na babae. Pero in a future later on when we go to Sinogo, yung Magwayan is male. Ganyan, which is an interesting thing. So and of course, syempre, parang I'm gonna stretch this out nang parang hihirit ko lang ito na parang since there is this this thing about Magwayan can be male and Magwayan can be female, parang maybe it would have been interesting na kung pareho silang lalaki in this story. Ganyan. Parang lang. Oo. Yeah. Pero magical naman, fantasy. So anything's possible. Ayan. Pero anyway, wala lang. Hinirit ko lang yan. Ganyan. Oo. Ayun. So, okay, so Alfred says, that was my plan for my grant. Okay. Sige. So anyone else? Anyone else has a question? Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to know po kung yung sword dito sa cover is based on any indigenous blade designs. Kasi it reads Japanese to me, and I just want to know kung meron nga tayong sword na indigenous na locally na looks like that din. Yun nga eh. Yun nga eh. Pero ang alam ko, may very active indigenous sword community sa Facebook. So baka kung gusto niya mag-research, oo.
Oo. Actually yun nga yung parang yun yung naging isang yun yung isang na curious lang ako. Parang Ayin, would you know, or Sir Ben, would you know na if there is a library sa CCP where alam yun yung parang nandiyan yung mga visual references, ganyan?
I think binigyan kayo ng access to the CCP Encyclopedia of Philippine Art. So if you can try to research or see the photos there, it would be great.
So meron talaga?
Meron na po. May article po ng Bisaya dun sa CCP Encyclopedia, na-check ko siya.
Okay.
Kasi doon rin kasi nag-base kami po dun sa Matedoray naman. Doon rin naman kami nag-base basically po sa CCP Encyclopedia.
Oo.
So maganda rin sana yung mga artwork doon nyo rin i-base kung ano yung laman ng encyclopedia.
Oo.
Kasi ito rin kasi napansin namin before in terms of animation, puro ang inspiration ng mga bata is YouTube. So maganda na kaya namin inopen yung Encyclopedia of Philippine Art is para naman at least maging useful siya. So kung kailangan nyo pa ng additional access, sabihin nyo lang sa amin. We can give you the
Yun.
subscription.
Mm-mm. Kasi how about yung mga other books kaya? So kasi ang alam ko, there is an actual book, a coffee table book about ancestral homes, yung mga Philippine architecture ng iba't ibang mga parang are there like is the CCP have like a collection of that?
Actually, kung saan po erasure, architecture, medyo kailangan namin mas mga references sa architecture ng mga
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure kasi if the Philippine Heritage Library would have that pero it would be nice to like look into that. So so for those who want access to the encyclopedia, Ayin, paano kaya 'yon?
Siguro you can message us and or Bea kasi i-refer naman namin sa group nila and they'd usually be the ones to issue that subscription keys for it. So yun.
Okay, so thank you for that.
So-
Ayan. So anything else? Do anyone else have like questions about
May question
the-
lang po, Sir
Yes.
Carlo. Curious lang ako dito sa sa story ni Sir Randy kasi meron dito na sa story na parang pinatay niya yung mga anak niya. Then yung parang dahil lang gusto niyang parang ipakita yung power niya. Tapos yung mga anak niya naman gusto lang nilang i-dethrone yung si Captain. Yung mga ganun ba, pwede ba siyang dagdagan ng kasi parang complete na yung story, di ba, ng mga ganyang kwento, yung mga epic na ganyan. Kumbaga, hanggang saan natin siya pwedeng dagdagan, hanggang saan natin pwedeng hilutin ng konti para makapasok tayo doon sa emosyon ng mga karakter. Kasi pag parang ganun lang, parang bakit siya galit, bakit siya walang binibigay na reasons, parang ganun. Doon sa mga karakter.
Oh, parang it's the narrative of the narrative of Lucifer. In
Parang
the sense, di
astig
ba?
lang ba siya?
Parang trip lang ba niya na
parang
i-challenge ang mga parents niya, ganyan.
Yes sir. Lalo na kung babasahin siya ng mga ng mga estudyante, ganyan. Parang napansin ko kasi doon sa mga creation story, sa mga epic, na hindi siya masyadong pumapasok doon sa psyche, doon sa loob ng ng mga character. Parang more on action lang siya, more on lang siya, physical. Hindi masyadong pinapasok yung utak, yung emosyon ng character. Pwedeng pumasok hanggang saan natin pwedeng baguhin. Pwede ba nating dagdagan yung para maging ma-humanize yung mga character, parang ganon. Maging relatable sila doon sa mga readers. Pwede ba yung ganon?
So is that a question for the organizers?
Yes, sir. Kasi applicable din siya sa iba kasi.
Yeah, actually for a number of your stories, meron ng iba sa inyo na naglagay ng ganon, ng konting motivation, ng konting psyche, ng konting philosophy, meron na. Well, given na this is the inaugural, I guess pwede lagay ng konting input doon ng dahilan ng motivation kung bakit nila gustong kalabanin si Captain at saka si Magwayan. Pero I guess yung pinaka-challenge lang doon talaga is really keeping the core story intact. Kumbaga pa-bonus na lang yung motivation para at least ma-modernize ng konti, mas maintindihan ng mga And of course, ilalagay na sa creator's notes na yun ang ginawa. Ayun,
magdadagdag din ako, sir. Kung pwede.
Sige po.
Kasi concern din namin yun doon sa Ted Roy story. Kasi po parang naging conflict po namin actually doon sa bandang dulo ng kwento. Kasi di ba parang yung kwento kasi namin tungkol sa ba't kailangan magkaroon, parang may kasing tanong doon, ba't kailangan magkaroon ng kamatayan? Samantala pwede naman maging immortal yung mga tao. Yung mga parang ganung question. Nakalagay po actually doon sa story sa KWF the book. Kasi nalaman namin book yung kwento rin pala nagmula rin pala doon sa book ni Dr. Maximo Ramos. Na kaya kailangan mamatay ng mga tao kasi gusto kasi nung goddess of death na meron siya makasama doon sa bongo o doon sa underworld. Kung isipin natin kasi kung isipin natin siya literally, parang motivation siya ng serial killer, di ba? So parang kami ngayon papasok ngayon, kaya conflict sa amin yon. Kaya ginawa namin syempre medyo binabago talaga namin yung context nung reasoning na yon, na nilagyan namin ng konting scientific na reason para para maging mas acceptable naman na reason kung bakit kailangan magkaroon ng death, at least in the philosophical point of view. Tapos, yun nga, bukas may kakausapin kaming Teduray. Hopefully, masagot din niya yung tanong na yun. Tatanungin namin siya. Doon sa ganung, pwede ba namin gawin yung ganung approach. Pero to sum up yung question, pero ba yun nga, doon siguro papasok yung part ng creative natin, creative license as a writer and as artist na yun nga, kaya tagal kumbaga, kung sasabi nga, medyo parang may kulang yung pagka-human ng interpretation ng mga nasa atin ng mga artist yun. Kung gusto natin siyang i-present as is o lalagyan natin syempre ng konting element ng humanization para mas makabit yung mga tao. Sa case namin actually yun yung malaking namin, malaking strategy namin. Binibigyan namin humanization yung mga anghel doon tsaka yung mga celestial beings sa story namin.
Yeah. Ayan, thank you for that. Thank you for that input. So yun, so Kerry naman. So it really is just a challenge of kasi understandable nga, for example, may batang magbabasa niyan, ganyan. So okay lang nakalabanan namin mga parents namin, ganon, ganyan. So it would be nice na to have that bit of of creative freedom. So ang tanong ni Alfred sa chat box, anong shark scene? Could we clarify? Ano pa yung shark scene?
Yung sa kwento. Yes po.
May nahuli kasing yung parang yung character dun sa book 2 na malaking isda. Tapos
Diyan ang nagpa-worship.
akala niya God.
Okay.
Doon nagalit si Kapitan na huwag niyong sambahin yung mga pating. Sambahin yung kami.
Oh my God. So meron
okay.
So may patricide na, may idolatry pa. Lahat ng mga kasalanan.
Juicy.
Actually, meron pang incest sa mga stories.
Yes.
My God, history is chismis. Grabe. Okay. Sige,
chismis.
I think Sir Mick is raising his hand. Am I correct? Sir Mick?
Hello po. Narinig niyo po ako?
Yes po.
May question lang ako about kasi about using yung actual book for reference as to compare dun sa actual accounts nung indigenous people. Kasi nag-meet po kasi kami with Julius tsaka yung mga Tedoray people na parang hindi sila familiar dun sa nakalagay dun sa book. And parang iba yung from what they learned dun sa nila, sa folklore nila or sa sa story nila ng mga Tedoray. So paano ba yung handling sa ganun? Should we go with with what yung mismong Tedoray people is saying or para mag-base na kami entirely sa book pa din?
Ayun.
Siguro sorry,
parang,
on my end, if that is the case, you go with parang right from the mouth of the so yun, kasi sila talaga yung tao na nag-reference. You just need to, I guess, record it so that at least meron kayong proof. Like if you're interviewing them, if you're asking them about the story, you're asking them to tell the story, it would just be nice for you to record that para at least may proof. And that could also be used to reference in future, if you could also like transfer that to what do you call this, to the CCP or give them a copy, then that could be a good reference also for other people in the future.
Yeah. But naman
ako na ungkatin ni Mick yun
Pero the good thing naman with it is naman parang sila din naman mismo yung version ng nasa book parang very naman sila to verify din dun sa mga tribe leaders din nila na parang gusto rin nila yung opinion din ng tribe leader kung itong version na to is valid din or parang may version talaga na ganun sa story ganyan. So very naman din yung mismong Tedoray people din to verify din yung kung ano yung mga yung nasa written books nga.
Oh, I'm glad kasi minsan sobrang against yung mga tao to write something or have something written But like, if that is the case nga, mas may weight pa rin yung recording at saka yung interview and the storytelling of the person from the tribe itself. So if that is what you're going with, tapos gagawin mo lang support yung the book itself, then that would give it a little more authenticity in my eyes anyway. And in general, kasi syempre, it's their community. So yun.
So medyo malawak yung diskusyon nyo ngayon when it comes to to that. So we can get into that when we get to actually to that Teduray story.
Ay,
I
sorry.
guess. No,
Sorry,
it's fine.
medyo
It's
na,
fine.
ano,
No,
medyo
okay lang.
Yun nga, napag-usapan rin natin to Mick eh.
Oo,
nga,
okay lang.
sorry.
Pero at least it's nice na meron tayong preview of what's to come, di ba? Parang coming up soon.
Pero alam mo naman, parang I think it could apply naman to other stories din.
Definitely.
It will apply
Diba,
naman.
Definitely.
yung ibang comic art, mga comic grantees din na parang na-encounter din silang ganun na parang iba nga yung version na alam ng mga mismong indigenous people nga, diba? So parang, yeah, I guess medyo naman din. Medyo related pa din. Pero yun.
Yeah.
Yun lang naman sa akin.
Yeah, no problem. So thank you for bringing that up. So kumbaga, according to Ayin, ang mangyayari, so the recommendation is to take it from, what they're saying now, and maybe pagdating sa creator's notes, you can reference it dun sa yung nasa libro para at least medyo mas ayun po.
Which is actually, ako na mismo sasagot sa mismong tanong ng kagrupo ko mamaya.
Okay.
Pero mamaya na.
Sige. Okay, so given that, I guess that's it for the time that we have for Lalang Kalibutan. Thank you very much, Sir Mel, for that virtual clap, visual clap. Ayan. Diba? Okay lang. So really, really great project there. So let's now proceed to the second. Let us welcome, is it Sir Ruel Enoya?
Yes, sir.
For Bantugan. I hope I pronounced that right.
Bantugan, yes.
Okay. Sige. So, you may share your screen whenever you're ready. Wag naman whenever you're ready. Baka bukas pa yun. So, please share your screen and you may begin.
Okay. So, ang pangunahing dahilan ko bakit pinili itong good afternoon everyone pala. Pangunahing dahilan ko bakit pinili ko yung Bantugan is itong nangyari sa Marawi na Marawi siege, Marawi battle between Philippine Government Security Forces and the Mautek noong 2017. At maraming effect na bigay nito doon sa mga Maranao brothers natin. So nasira yung architecture, nasira yung bahay, livelihood, education, apektuhan. So sabi ko, kailangan ko ng something na mag-uplift ng spirit ng mga Maranao and also ma-highlight kung ano yung culture nila, ano yung tingkad ng kultura nila. So naisip kong gamitin itong opportunity na to ng CCP para ibigay sa kanila yon. So napili ko yung Darangen, which is ibig sabihin ay to narrate in a song sa salitang Maranao. Si Bantugan isa sa mga hero doon sa epic ng Darangen. So Darangen is a pre-Islamic epic poetry of Maranaos. Maranaos means people of the lake. And it is recognized as a natural cultural treasure of the Philippines, Darangen. It is a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity declared by UNESCO. So, ganun siya kalaki. Kaya pinili ko rin siya. So, yeah, most popular stories in Darangen is Bantugan and Indara Patran Sulaiman. So, ilan sa mga challenges dito sa preservation ng Darangen is nawala yung ibang manuscripts ng Darangen dahil doon sa Marawi siege, no? At kunti na lang din yung gumagawa ng Darangen doon sa lugar. And also yung naging isa sa mga hindrances din is yung mga words na ginamit sa Darangen is archaic na o hindi na masyadong ginagamit sa everyday lives ng mga Maranao. So ang background ko as a writer, nag-start ako magsulat sa Liwayway ng 2003. Then nag-start ako sa story writing. Then gumawa rin ako ng mga short film scripts. Pero lumaki ako nagbabasa ng comics ng Pinoy. sa liwayway, saka yung mga aliwan, yung mga ganong comics, mga lumang comics. Then, naging comic book artist ako ng Anito na pinablish ng Viva Books. So yung technical description nito, yung physical description ng comics is 6x9 and estimated number of pages is 60 pages colored siya. So sa primary reference ko dito sa kwento is itong version ni Frank Lobach, The Marano Bantugan. So ito yung ginagamit din ng DepEd na version ng Bantugan. So mas popular tong version na to, although marami siyang pagkakaiba doon sa ibang libro na nagkukwento ng Daranggen. So ito naman yung ginagamit ng DepEd. So parang sabi ko baka mas tong version na to, pero gusto kong gamitin din yung ibang reference, no, ng isama yung reference ng mga ganitong stories from Daranggen, tas mga thesis ni Mabel Cole, no. So ito yung summary na napili ko ng kwentong napili ko, ng version na napili ko. So everything changed when the Datu o Bombaran, a kingdom by the lake, died, and his selfish, envious, and impatient firstborn son Madali succeeded to the throne. His first goal is to use public pressure to get rid of his younger brother Bantugan, who possesses superhuman strength. Bantugan feels extremely alienated in his own land, so he leaves the kingdom and embarks on a long journey to find a new home. He becomes ill and dies. Kingdom Tusis, where a princess named the Timbang and her brother lived. Less body. Madali is heartbroken and remorseful after learning of his brother's death. He claims his brother's body and offers to travel to the afterlife to retrieve his brother's spirit. When the other kingdoms learn of Bantugan's death, they conclude that Bombaran is defenseless, so they conspire against its weak Dato. The story ends, however, with Madali fighting side by side with Bantugan in a massive epic battle. So yung napansin ko dito sa story naman na to, may mga parts siya, may mga elements siya na pwedeng i-relate dito sa modern, no? Like for example, yung ginamit niya yung public pressure, yung inutos niya doon sa mga nasasakupan niya na wag kausapin, parang cancel culture yung kwento, may ganun siyang element. So medyo nakukulangan lang ako. So nung una sinamit ko to, medyo mahaba yung story. So may mga naglagay pa ako dito dati ng parang story nila magkapatid, kung saan nagagaling yung inggit. Yung pinakita ko ng ganon, saan nagagaling yung ibang element dito, saan nanggagaling. So parang gusto kong i-justify lahat. Pero nung hiningan ako ng mas concise, mas maikli, ito na lang binigay ko. Pero yun nga, iniisip ko kasi dagdagan pa yung kwento para mas palawakin pa. Parang gawin kong parang pag in-adapt sa series or sa TV, mas marami pang paghugutan, mas marami pang pagkukunan ng kwento. So ito yung design ko ng sorry. So ito yung design ko ng main character, si Bantugan. Yung drawing ko yung front, side and back. Then i-reincarnated Bantugan. Ito naman yung design ko. Naglagay lang ako ng mga, sa costume, tumingin lang ako ng mga Maranao costumes, mga datu, yung mga ganon. Kasi nung ginagawa rin namin yung Anito comics, may research din kami ginawa. So sa mga costumes ng Pinoy nung ancient times. Yung parang nagkaroon din ako ng background sa anong design ng kampilan, anong design ng mga headdress nila, mga ganun. So ginamit ko lang siya. Then sa architecture, since may architecture background naman ako, yung mga turogan, yung mga detalye ng turogan, gagamitin ko rin siya doon sa... Yung turogan is yung Maranao House, Royal House nila. So gagamitin ko rin mga detalye na yun para sa design. Pwedeng sa background, sa mga gano'n. Then sa pages, gumawa ako ng sample pages nito. So ito yung time na yung may isang loro na dumalaw doon sa lifeless body ni Bantugen. Then sabi niya, this is Bantugen. Sabi niya doon sa mga nakapulot kay Bantugen. Dineclare niya. Tapos ginawa ko siya ng ibang element. Like ginawa ko to kasi meron ding witch doon sa Maranao culture, yung pantak. So itong loro na to, bala ko sanang gawin na parang witch siya na nagiging tao siya, nagiging hayop siya. Parang gano'n. So nag-transform siya ng gano'n. Yun yung unang idea ko ng Pero yun nga, kaya ang question ko, hanggang saan ko siya pwedeng baliin pa rin yung kwento. So ito yung sketches ko lang sa So yun nga, just like sa story ni Bantugen na namatay siya, natalo siya, sinundo siya ng kapatid niya para buhayin ulit. Parang yun din yung gusto kong i-send the message sa mga Maranao, na after ng death and destruction, pwede pa silang bumangon ulit. Yun po yung story. Thank you po. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Ruel, for that. Grabe,
Ito pa yung cover ko.
Oo. Diba? Isa ka pa ring kapalang halimaw, writing and artwork. Grabe.
Yan po yung naisip ko.
Sige. Okay.
Idol po po kayo,
thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Magturo ka naman ng perspective for comics art. Oo. Maraming mga kailangan yan. Okay, thank you for your presentation. So, una, yung katulad ng sinabi natin kanina, you mentioned nga kung gaano how much na kaya mong baliin yung kwento. I guess nga yung parang importante nga yung sinabi mo kanina, yung baka may magtanong parang bakit ba naiinggit yung si Madali kay Bantugen, yung ganyan. Tapos another thing is yung sinabing public pressure. Ano yung public pressure na yun? 'Di ba? Yung parang ano bang malaking kasalanan anong fake news ni Madali kay Bantugen, ganyan. Pero another thing which and I don't know this is just my personal yung parang pagdating sa actual kwento, mas nagkaroon ng character transformation si Madali. Tama? Parang si Bantugen kasi, parang, public pressure, I will leave, and then I will die, and then ni-rescue ako. Yung ganyan, parang walang siyang masyadong arco as a character compared sa kapatid. Di ba yung kapatid, una masamang tao, tapos biglang nag-regret, and then, we'll fight together, brother, ganyan. Di ba? So yung ganon. So I don't know lang, Ayin, parang when it comes to that, parang pwede bang, parang kasi it seems to me at least that the story is more about Madali than Bantugen mismo. Pero the title is Bantugen. So parang kailangan bang lagyan ng mas dagdag na laman si Bantugen to merit na siya yung bida? Unless nga nandyan yung analogy na Bantugen actually represents Marawi. Yung ganon, yung pwede mong i-push yun. Yung ganyan, yung si Bantugen na walang kamalay-malay, biglang inatake, biglang and then yung ganyan. So it's just like Marawi na from out of nowhere, biglang inatake and ganyan. So yung ganon, unless you want that analogy. So yun ang right now yun ang comment ko. Ayin or anyone else?
May isa pang version ng story, sir, ng Bantugen, yung it's about parang marriage. Kasi karamihan sa mga pansin ko sa mga story ng mga epic na mga about marriage,
romantics,
yung main element. So isip ko siguro yung may part din ako na ng comics ko na parang maging two parts siya. Yung isa version ng Lobak, then yung isa yung version ng ng mas hindi popular na version. Kasi yung sa ngayon kasi ma'am, ang version na mas popular at ginagamit ng DepEd is yung kay Lobak na version. Yun ang parang dilemma ko din na paano yun, kasi hindi siya popular siya pero hindi siya yung parang pantag, hindi siya yung mas authentic siguro parang kung sasabihin ko na for lack of a better word. Kasi marami kang libro na hindi ganun yung kwento. Like for example, si Madali saka si Bantugin, hindi magkapatid dun sa ibang libro. Magpinsan sila. Pero dito sa kay Lobak, which is nakuha niya naman din sa mga Maranao elders nung pumunta siya noong 1930. Ganun yung ninarrate sa kanya na kwento na magkapatid si Bantugin saka si Madali. So, baka kailanganin ko ng dalawang version ng story dun sa kwento para lang ma-present sa mga estudyante na ito yung version. Kasi magkakaiba naman talagang version ng Bantugin. Yun isa sa mga concerns ko rin.
Oo, like I
sa
said nga.
pag-develop ng story ko.
Oo, like I said nga, since it was passed on orally, like, there would definitely be changes in it based on who's telling the story. Okay. Ang hirap kasing magmarunong. On my end, ako yung tinatanong. So ako parang, sige, ganito. What we're trying to find out is if we have those materials in the encyclopedia so that we can reference that. Kasi yun yung mas, di ba, parang at least yun, naaral na. Mas safe tayo doon.
Yes.
Yung second part is also finding sino yung pwedeng resource persons ninyo for this story so that it's a little more close to what the community really knows of kung paano talaga yung story. Okay. Fortunately for you, I did research 2016, a year before the siege. I actually have photos of the Torogan. I have photos of like all their materials. I think have photos of some of their books because sobrang flimsy na nung 2016 eh. So I can share those with you, I think.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oo. So, remind mo lang ako kasi hanapin ko pa siya. But like, that's it. Yun lang. Dun lang sa story talaga, hindi ako makapag-comment because I really am not the expert in it. So hahanapan, what we will do is try and find somebody from CCP kung sino yung pwede nilang pag-referan sa'yo so that you can check on the authenticity of that. So yon. Thank you for giving us your concerns. Kasi syempre concern na rin namin yan.
Pero kung which one ang gagawin mo, I recommend pili lang ng isa kasi hindi namin alam kung gaano kabilis yung gumawa ng artwork. Ang ganda-ganda ng artwork mo. Anong medium mo? Dun sa colored.
I think ang gamit ko, sir, is digital.
Okay.
Clip Studio yung line ko kasi mas gusto ko siya sa Clip Studio.
Okay.
Paint gamitin. Then ang kulay nun nasa Procreate sa iPad.
Okay.
Pero pwede rin, pero ginamit ko doon sa sa comics dati na Anito is Photoshop. Okay naman.
Okay. Oo. Pero I guess depende sa bilis mo. I think you might need to choose one story lang. Unless gusto mo talagang i-career na dalawang kwento mo. Para bonggang-bongga talaga yung yun. So I guess it's a choice. In which case, Ayin, okay lang na magpalit siya ng kwento? Ganun ba yun? Or does it qualify as
yun na nga eh. Kasi technically, ang na-approve ito eh. So, that might cause a problem if ever, but I'll have to check natin and I'll have to get back to you as soon as possible. Generally, yung mga taga-CCP, they have work from Tuesdays until Friday. So extended hours lang. So most likely, hopefully within next week, mabalikan kita agad. So yan. Note lang din, siguro yung I know your style. I just don't know how accurate yung long hair for them because from what I understand they always have like short hair because meticuloso sila eh, alam mo yun, maayos at saka may yabang yung mga sorry for the term, pero talagang meron silang yabang. They really like to, showcase how good they are as a culture, yung community. So, paki-check lang yung hair and then um tama naman na maputi kasi generally yung mga Maranao yung as historical maputi sila, hindi sila ganun ka moreno like us. So yun lang yung kung gagamitin nila yung references, but I'll forward to you what I have. Hahanapin ko lang.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Sir Marco?
That's all.
Ay, gusto ko lang itanong kung meron ba sa na-research mo kung ano nangyari sa hometown ni Bantugan after he died? Like, nag-suffer ba sila? Ano yung naging mga changes sa hometown niya after he left tsaka died?
Actually, sir, hindi na kumabot sa story na namatay siya. I mean, doon kasi sa ibang kwento kasi namatay siya, tinamaan lang ng kidlat yung yung boat niya. Tapos nawala na siya. Parang may ganung kwento din siya. Pero dito sa story, namatay lang siya. Sa story na pinili ko, namatay siya, then nagkaroon ng epic battle. Tapos nanalo naman sila. Yun nanalo naman sila. Maganda naman yung ending. Kumbaga, hindi ko lang naisama dun sa summary ko. Pero ganun yung nangyari. Pero dun sa ibang story ng na concern ko, sa ibang story ng Bantugan, ang pagkamatay ni Bantugan is tinamaan siya ng kidlat. May mga ganung version ng story. Pero dito, yung gera lang, tapos nanalo sila. Kasi malakas na si Bantugan. Parang reincarnate siya, mas lumakas pa siya.
Okay. Kaya ko lang po tinanong kasi baka this is one way to address yung issue na rinaise ni Carlo. Kasi 'di ba sabi niya yung mga character journeys natin, it's more about Madali and the other person. Sorry, I'm bad with names. Pero sometimes kasi the central personality of your story can be built around a character's absence din. So kung ma-feel natin yung absence ni Bantugan, baka dun mas lilitaw na bida talaga siya.
Yes. Nagets ko
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, sir. Okay. I now have another question for Ayin based on Sir Wel's question situation. Is it possible since na-approve yung kay Lobak na version, is it possible for him to borrow elements from the other story para ma-enhance?
I think we can. It's just that you need to put it in the notes. Kasi
yan.
syempre adaptation yan eh. Mahirap namang mabitin yung mga tao dun sa story kasi ganito yung medium. Tapos ito lang yung original. So I think that's part of the creative license that we can just make sure as much as possible reference kung bakit mo siya dinagdag doon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted na.
Sige. Actually yung question ko na yan is like a preview to another story later on, yung Sun Says, Moon Says. Yun. So we will find about that later on. So, ayan, si Annabelle, kinakabahan na si Annabelle. So, any other questions about Bantugan by Sir Well? Yes.
Actually, it's not really about the story. I'm more curious about what your process is from start to finish. Because I'm also a solo creator on my comic, so I'm also writing it and also illustrating it. So I just want to know how you complete a page. Like, do you start with an outline, as in full script, before you start drawing a page?
Ang ginagawa ko pa siya is dapat script muna talaga, merong script. Then ang kasunod nun is thumbnails. Kasi ayoko isang i-drawing agad lahat ng yung thumbnails lang, yung tamang blocking lang ng mga character, saan nakatayo yung character, saan ko siya ipoposisyon. Tapos in connection din doon sa page, kasi dapat yung page yung may flow kasi yung isang page, 'di ba, ng comics. Parang may direction yung mata dapat ng readers. So, ni-layout ko siya ng ganon. So, thumbnails, layout, tapos yung panel, yung design ng panel kung saan ko siya ipupwesto, saka yung mga balloons kung saan siya ipupwesto. Then saka ako mag-i-sketch ulit kasi digital naman yung gamit ko. Papatungan ko ulit ng yung maliit na size ng thumbnail, ilalagay ko siya sa size ng 6x9, for example, yung comic page. Then enlarge ko, then iti-trace ko yung mag-sketch ako ulit. Mas refine, mas detalyadong sketch, mas detalyadong sketch. Then ang ginagawa ko, ibabawasan ko ulit yung opacity nun para mas malabo siya. Tapos i-drawing ko siya ulit. Ganun, parang ilang process siya na para pag drawing ko siya, hindi mababawasan na yung yung mali. Then kasi minsan pag nagkamali ka doon, nababawasan yung energy mo na parang ulitin ko na naman ito, nakakapagod. Yun, minsan iniiwasan ko yun na yung parang nadi-disappoint ako doon sa sa process ko rin. Kaya talagang dapat bawat process dahan-dahan pero sure. Kahit matagal na process. Pwede naman abutin ng December.
Sana naman. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So follow-up question. So when you work on the line art, is it several versions also? Like you're constantly editing it until it's the way you want it to look? Or do you figure it out, all the details sa sketch, then line art is final na after you finish, tapos you color it?
Kung share ko yung screen ko, share ko na lang yung screen ko siguro.
Sige.
Para makita ka na.
Iba yung process ko eh.
Okay. Dito kasi may ginawa ako na sample. Halimbawa dito. Ito may mga ganito akong sketches. No?
So parang super rough.
Start sa ganyan. Parang rough. Ganyan. No? Page 1, page 2, page 3. Ayan. So may mga na siya, kumbaga meron na siyang mga text na nakikita na yung mga text. So kahit yung composition mo, nakikita mo na rin siya kung paano siya. Although webtoon yung ito, format nito.
Yeah, napansin ko nga.
Parang ganyan din siya. So
Okay.
may mga rin siya ng ganyan. Then saka ko siya, i-drawing sa dadalhin siya, i-import ko siya ngayon sa Clip Studio. Mas madadali ang mag drawing ng sketch sa yan, nagiging ganyan na yung process. Yan. Yun yung unang sketch ko. Naging ganyan siya. Saka siya kukulayan rin. Although minsan, hindi ko yan lahat kasi mas matagusan yung so sa CCP bala ko kasi plano ko dito is iba nang magkukulay sa akin.
Okay.
Ako lang gagawa ng para mas pabawasan yung load sa akin. Mas mabilis yung process.
Okay.
Yun lang. Pero ganun siya, parang layer siya tapos nire-refine ko yung nire-refine ko yung Pero kasi for example dito, hindi naman kailangan eksakto kung anong in-sketch mo ng una. Pwede mo rin baguhin naman. Then, yun lang.
Okay.
Kumbaga, Sir, layers is your friend.
Yeah.
Layer naman layer.
Infinite layers.
So, yun nga. Na-realize ko rin, kailangan ko ng yung medyo challenging din talaga yung mag-isa ka, mag-drawing. Kailangan mo rin talaga ng assistant kahit maggawa ng plots ng kulay. Yung plot na plot color. Yun, gano'n.
Sige.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sige. Thank you for that question. Thank you, Sir Ruel. So I guess we're it's 6 o'clock. So we need to move on. Thank you so much, Sir Ruel, for your presentation and for answering our questions. We will have two more presentations, and we'll have a brief break, and then we'll go for the final three. after the break. So let's proceed now. Yes, it's Sir Marco, Legend of Sleeping Beauty Mountain. So whenever you're ready, Sir Marco.
Can everyone see my screen?
Ayan na.
Okay. Sige. Pitch mode muna ako. So, hi everybody. Before I start, I want you all to know that I am a filthy Conyo Manileño, which means I'm going to be presenting in English. But also because I am a filthy Conyo Manileño, most of what I know about our IPs comes from AP books. And one of my problems always with AP books is they never contain the folk tales of our IPs, which is sad because I believe that stories reflect the values of their writers. In the case of oral traditions, they reflect the values of the community at large. This story that we want to tell shows us that the Kalinga people believe in a love powerful enough to shape mountains and birth waterfalls. Oh, epic, di ba? So this is the legend of Sleeping Beauty Mountain. It's a love story often sung in the Ulalim, a Kalinga folk epic. It tells the story of Bana, a brave warrior who falls in battle, leaving his wife Edon-san waiting for him atop Mount Patukat. When she realizes he won't be returning, she falls, weeping until she passes, and then the mountain takes the form of her body, and two waterfalls spring from her tears. This is the view, if I'm not mistaken, from Buscalan village in Tinglayan. So you can really see the shape of her profile. You can see where her nose is, her chin, and everything. So Mount Patuca now serves as a monument to Edon-san, reminding all who see it of hers and her husband's tale and how deeply the Kalinga experience love. I'll touch on this later, but me and my creative partner, we are pushing this to be a multilingual adaptation and one of the most accessible versions of the story with respect and reverence for its originators. So I'm Marco, I am the writer, and I have the privilege of working with Rob as my co-creator and artist. So just to give you guys a background, our sources for the story are just multiple performances and one written version as dictated by tribal elders. But we are hoping to get in touch with the NCIP and hopefully get a recording of the story as well as a translation. Kasi I know I'm a Manileño. I don't want to fall into the trap of cultural appropriation. So we want to be a megaphone for our IPs. So we want to tell the story as closely as possible to how they tell it. So what is the story? So Bana is a strong, brave Kalinga warrior. He's the shit, he's like hot stuff. But he has everything in his life except a wife. The problem is all the women in his town are taken, so he has to leave for another village to find somebody else. Upon visiting one of the other villages atop a mountain, he hears this beautiful voice, and it's Ednon-san, and it's love at first hear. So he he asks to be let into the home of Edon-san. And the thing here is kasi back in those days, the Kaligat tribes, they were wary of each other. They're very territorial. So Edon-san and Bana's tribes were actually at odds with each other. So meron tayong a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet of the Philippines thing going here, di ba? But eventually, when the father sees how much Bana is enchanted by Edon-san, he accepts him into his home and does a few things to make him feel welcome. Eventually, Bana sings the Ulalim, and this wins the two over, father and daughter, and they are allowed to marry. The village celebrates the wedding with much dancing and singing, and according to old Kalinga customs, Bana actually stays and spends a week with Edon-san's family, endearing himself to them. And this honeymoon portion will be sort of the rom-com part before we hit the tragedy, because we have a lot of feelings. So after the week, after the honeymoon, they go back to Tinglayan, where Bana is from, and he hears a battle happening. So he asks Edon-san to wait at the top of Patukan so she'll be safe. He just has to go and win this fight. The problem is, while he is amazing in battle, he also dies. And this is where the tragedy happens. It's in some tellings of the story, it's said that the last thing he saw was Edon-san's face because he's such a romantic. So Edon-san sits atop the mountain, she waits, and when it becomes clear that he isn't coming back, she breaks down, she cries, and her body becomes the mountain that we know now as Sleeping Beauty Mountain. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier was we wanted to make this the most accessible version of the story possible, because one of the problems we encountered when doing research for this is there is no written or there's no written record of the story as told by the tribal elders, at least not one that is published by an official source online. Like we did our best. The most we could do was rely on oral traditions. So this is one way of hopefully preserving the story as told as closely as possible by the communities. And in order to do that, we came up with a narrative device. We have on-page storytellers. We have Alat, a magical girl with the ability to translate any language, and she will be our on-page reason why we are presenting the story in 8 Filipino languages. Well, sorry, 7 Filipino languages and English. We wanted this kasi to be read by as many students as possible. Kasi nga, yung hugot ko is I didn't get to read much about our folktales as a kid. So like, you know what? Let's make sure other kids get access to this story. Now, the main storyteller will be Nanang. Nanang is an ancient creature. She's an alan, an encanto that is found normally in the Cordilleras near where the Kalinga live, and she knows every myth and legend. So Alat will be translating the story for our readers. Kasi si Nanang, she speaks in a mix of multiple languages as well. And then the last 3 on-page storytellers are Alat's brothers, and they will be there as audience surrogates. Every now and then they will help the reader process the story by asking the usual questions that kids would ask when they're being told the story. So yun, we are trying to help. This is an all ages tale, so we're trying to help young kids talaga understand the purpose of this story, what it tells us about our culture and about the Kalingas. So yun, this page is basically what I just said. This will be heavily digital, but there will be print options. And going to Rob's part of the presentation. So he had this fantastic idea of using traditional Kalinga tattoo patterns as part of the storytelling device, because the tattoos are a living storytelling tradition on the skin of many warriors. So he did some research. Syempre, we'll do further research. We'll coordinate with the NCIP to make sure everything's right. But yun, if you notice in one of our sample images over here, Rob has actually used the patterns for mountains and rivers around Edonsan to depict her transformation into the mountain and waterfalls. So yeah, ang galing ni Rob, guys. I love him. Anyway, yun, I mentioned earlier that I wish we could tell more stories of our IPs. And we also came to realize that this was an opportunity to tell even more myths and folk tales of the Cordilleras. So if this project proves successful, maybe of Lola Basha, fingers crossed. And, we hope to do by kids all across the Philippines. That's it. Thank you.
Ayan, thank you very much for that, Sir Marco. Okay, so what I really like about this is that parang arguably the story is relatively very very simple. It's very simple. It's very straightforward, very emotional, and so to keep it interesting. Kasi arguably for a story like this, in 4 pages you're done, right? So kumbaga, what's nice about what your team has done is you added those storytelling devices, you added the narrating cast and as the guide for the readers, yung ganyan. So that's a very very interesting take, which others can do for their stories if you can actually consider that as a tip. Yes. So the AP books are Araling Panlipunan. Ayon. So now here's ano. So you mentioned that you want to do this in several languages. Pero for Miss Ayin, we're just taking one, right?
Yes, for now we are looking at I mean, what exactly are you planning on putting it out in English or in like their local language? Siguro yun na muna.
The
Yeah.
first one.
So since I'm a filthy Conyo Manileño, yeah, the original script will be in English, and then
Okay.
we'll get translations na lang na ano for our own release. Kasi yun nga, what we'll be submitting to the CCP will be English. Unless
Okay.
the CCP wants the Tagalog version.
Tsaka, speaking of which po, ma'am, di ba, yung nga isa sa mga kasama ko, saan ba yung i-render? English
Yeah.
at Tagalog. Sabihin natin, Tagalog, tapos gawa na lang natin ng English kapag may hiwalay na project.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, they actually specified kung ano yung preferred nila, di ba? So if it's not in the local language, English is fine, and then may translations nga later on.
Yeah.
Tama, yun yung nakalagay dun sa kanilang parang guideline. I'll have to check on that, but yeah, I think English is fine.
Tsaka yun nga po, kapag nga po sabi nga, I mean, ako, wala naman problema sa akin kasi di ba, represent namin siya sa Tagalog. Pero kumbaga, okay lang naman sa akin i-translate yung buong language in English. Kailangan lang siyempre ng dagdag na pondo. Kasi iba naman ano natin eh. Pero ibang
Baka
usapan.
mag-NBDB tayo niyan para dun sa translation fund.
Ayun.
But generally, encourage na in the local language where the story is from, just to put it out there. If you guys have that ability, then please do so. So yun.
Okay. Sige. So, Ethel in the chat box says medyo madugo to get approval from the elders on the yeah. So is there any way around it, or like are we sticking to the idea na this is based on the research ngayon, yung parang is the consent of the indigenous peoples required for this?
Yung sa amin, yung sa experience namin, yung sa Panay Bukidnon, there is this, we have to consult, parang yung sa barangay, there have different elders dyan. So every elders, parang you have to get their signature that they allow the comic project to go on. So, yung madugo lang part kasi it involves giving, money.
Yes.
Okay.
Bribing.
Okay.
So, medyo laki-laki yung naabono namin.
May I ask po how much you ended up spending? Is that okay? So that we have
Yung
an
sa
idea.
project coordinator namin, hindi yan na-disclose, pero each time they get there, parang they have to shell out 10,000 every visit. Ganun. Kasi, you're lucky if yung indigenous people, parang hindi sila nasanay, parang they can give their consent without monetary exchange. Kasi yung sa Panay Bukidnon, parang nasanay na sila na maraming tao na nag-ask permission sa kanila, nag-aabono ng money. So parang it gets expensive na parang even smaller kids na naghihingi ng pera at binibigyan. So
it was not professionally set. Ganyan.
Parang medyo out of control na. Kasi during the time, parang nagra-rush na talaga kami. Parang there is a big pressure na to get parang yung sa Japan Foundation, they needed those papers kasi parang mag-end of the month na. End of the year na. So parang para mas mapabilis, you have to, bigay ng money, ganon. So parang you have to do muna yung research kung ilan yung elders na i-revisit nyo. So if okay rin sa kanila, usually parang okay rin sa kanila yan, hindi naman sila choosy, pero when it comes sa Manila.
Baka paubos ang grant.
Did you when you did your research po, were you coordinating with the NCIP or sari-sariling effort lang to?
With NCIP.
With NCIP. Okay.
Oo, kasi during that time medyo tricky kasi there's many elders to deal with in each barangay and parang maraming barangay. So we're lucky na sa isang taon lang namin ginawa yan kasi normally if it's something na if it involves yung entire island.
Mhm.
Para maraming barangay talaga yung i-consult namin. So, pero yung that time, yung sa project, medyo parang nag-allocate ng 300.
Mhm.
300,000.
Ubos nga ang grant.
Hindi ko pa natanong sa kasama ko, pero parang nag-allocate ng ganong amount for the grant, for the NCIP process alone. Parang magkapareho na yung sa production grant. So parang ganon.
So in that case, Miss Ayin, is there anything that the CCP can do to intervene? Kasi, di ba, biglang may tawa talaga ang
Tinawanan
answer.
ka talaga. Parang,
kasi ba, comics,
ganito yan,
gumagawa po kami ng comics, ganyan.
Oo, yun na nga eh. So, ganito kasi yan. So, first off, clarify ko lang, I am for the CCP training, not necessarily CCP. So,
Okay.
kaya kailangan, meron pa rin akong pagtatanungan dyan sa CCP. In general talaga, yung permissions are encouraged, pero ang hirap nga kasi because of the experience. I mean, even us, me having to go to Marawi City in 2016, that was on my own because ang hirap and I had to like source everything myself. So I empathize with, what you're going through. I don't think CCP has personally, I don't think CCP has the capacity to coordinate with NCIP per se on this at such a short notice. Kasi di ba parang yun talaga yung limitation natin yung time, because we have a limited time for developing the material. That's why we're trying to get the instead of authenticity in terms of what do you call this, yung sign-offs ng community, we're trying to get it from the authenticity of the resources that you have.
Okay.
So, yun dun natin babawian ng substantiation. Very, very tricky talaga yung gusto ni CCP na cultural preservation, pero walang sign-off ng mga communities. So, dun din ako, parang dun ako hindi rin settled because that is necessary. But then again, since this is the first time now that we're doing it and we're learning so much more from our journey together, our struggles together. So we'll make do with what we can. So yun.
Pero may is it at least possible, since I think ito yung sa area ni Sir Ben ito, 'di ba? Parang that's like their jurisdiction. Is it possible na to get some kind of assurance from them na okay lang kahit walang sign off?
Oo. So parang written, no?
Oo, na parang sinasabi na okay lang mga comics creators na wala kayong sign off, ganyan. Basta authentic, go for research, ganyan. And then maybe in the future, if it can be worked out early on for future projects, baka pwede na. Pero for now, as the inaugural, kung pwede lang maging formalized statement from the Supreme League na okay lang.
Sige. Hihingi tayo niyan sa CCP para at least kumalma tayo lahat.
Yes.
Kasi i-add ko lang po, kasi there was one instance na yung Tuos, which is based on Panay Bukidnon na movie, yung kay Nora Honor, parang hindi sila nag-undergo nung proper process ng NCIP. So by the time na parang i-acquire sana ng Netflix to show it, yung mga
problem,
yung mga indigenous people parang ayaw nila kasi it does not reflect their culture. Kasi parang cultural appropriation yung nangyari sa Tuos, kasi parang malayo siya sa it misrepresented the indigenous people.
Ayun. We want to avoid that.
Which is parang sabi ko, ayun nga, I guess yung isang advantage nga kasi kapag nag-research, yung meron talagang yung publication ng ng story. Kasi nga, sa case namin, di ba, dun sa Tedoray story nga, published version siya, although Islamized version siya, nalaman namin na ito palang story to nagmula pa mismo doon sa writings mismo ni Dr. Maximo Ramos, 'di ba? Known siya for his extensive research sa sa mga Philippine folklore mythology at sa mga niya. Well respected siya na person. So advantage 'yon na kumbaga at least pwede ka mag-refer doon sa text na ginawa ni Dr. Ramos. Para yan, secure na siguro namin yung permission ng Phoenix Publishing para pwede namin ma-permit na as per copyright na napag-usapan na nakaraan. Pero yun, kumbaga, idadagdagan na lang natin ng mga elements doon sa mga sarili nating research doon sa Tedoray culture. Kasi kumbaga, given nga na yung reference material mo, sinulat naman siya ng isang reliable na source. Dadagdagan mo lang kasi, for example, nalaman namin dito sa sa book. Nakalagay kasi pangalan ng creation gods Wala. Pero kumbaga kasi sa Islam kasi, parang ang isabihin kasi ng Wala ay word of Allah. So kumbaga, para nung kinonsulta namin yung ibang mataga sa BARM kasi ang concern diyan tawag ka ay Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. So may mga nakuha kami sa MIPA para nag-comment sila, yung Swala, palitan nila pangalan mismo nung parang equivalent ng God talaga na Tulus. So yun, yung ginagawa namin mga changes doon sa story na based doon sa book, pero change namin kasi nagkukonsulta kami sa mga Tedoray. Ganun.
Ayan, thank you for that, sir.
Thanks. Thank
Oo,
you.
'di ba? Itong ginagawa natin, hindi lang siya basta nagko-comics.
Ay, pero may I add also
Yes,
na
ma'am.
Yes, of course.
na parang if your source material is derived from the IP that no longer exists, no need to undergo the process of NCIP.
When you say the IP no longer exists, as in nabura na yung indigenous people, ganun ba yun?
Hindi, kasi for example, yung sa Hinilawod, yung ni-record ni Hokano na si Ulan Uday, parang although IP siya, pero that time hindi pa nagkaroon ng IP mapping. So parang hindi na define. Tapos yung Panay Bukidnon does not claim the Hinilawod as their own. So parang open siya. So I just approach yung anak ni Hokano to get permission kasi yung ama niya kasi yung nag-research. Tapos yung indigenous person parang hindi na matrace kung parang yung IP sa Lambunaw no longer exists kasi hindi na pina-practice yon. So parang older epic na hindi na siya na-pass on sa new generation.
Okay. Sige. Thank you so much.
Naging legality siya, grandfather legality na siya na yun nga. Before kasi na-implement yung intellectual property laws. Hindi na siya, kumbaga yun nga, wala nang maangkin. So, technically, public domain na nga siya.
Kasi yung mga Panay Bukidnon people, if you incorporate yung Hinilawod sa Sugidanon, they will be very offended. So that's why. Kasi meron yung mga kakilala ko na cultural worker, gumawa sila nung stage play ng Hinilawod. They incorporated yung elements sa Sukidanon. Nagalit yung indigenous people sa Panay Bukidnon because they want nothing to do with Hinilawod.
Okay.
Would it be possible kaya if we limit our retelling of the story to one Kalinga tribe's version? Like,
kasi,
would that be a workaround?
Yes, yung workaround mo is yung, kasi yung sa Kalinga, they don't claim yung certain version of story. So, kung sinong tribe na similar yung stories na ginagawa mo, doon ka mag-ask permission or magkwan. Kasi no need, for example, if yung tribe, they want nothing to do with yung version ng iba, they might ask you to change the story to fit their own. Kasi to get their consent, you have to follow what visions that they want. So to play it safe, hanap ka na lang yung tribe na nag-fit sa story na ginagawa mo para mas lower yung number of people. Lower yung pera na i-distribute.
Alternatively, yung ano nga, kumbaga may publication, may existing publication na nung story, 'di ba? Kasi pwedeng mo doon i-cite tapos kumbaga, yun na i-cite mo, tapos kumbaga sabihin mo lang doon sa creator's notes na na you're enriching yung knowledge by asking them. Pero yung primary source mo, yung book. Kung may makita ka na ng version ng book ng story.
Yun nga po, walang published
Kasi ang lalagi nating alalahanin, given na tayo nga, yes, ikaw sabi nga, manilayan yung konyo yung description sa sarili mo. Yung mismong render mo ng story para sabihin, parang never mo talagang lalapit dun sa mismong authentic na story ng mga IPs. Kasi hindi naman tayo part ng IP in the first place. We are just getting the closest approximation. So lagi natin i-take into account yun na consideration na we are just, sabihin natin kung sa research, standing at the shoulders of a giant. Sa kasi standing at the shoulders of a giant of an existing culture. So kumbaga, we are just trying to tell their story in a most respectful manner. Yun yung pinaka-mahalaga.
Megaphone lang kami.
Most respectful. Kasi yun nga, kahit sa mismong, for example, kahit sa mismong mga Cordilleras, malamang ibang version ng kwento. Pangalan, magkakaiba sila eh.
There are 3 different names.
At least mas-certify mo na siguro sa isang group na okay siya. Or makaharap ka ng publication before na tinitel story na yun, pasok ka na. Medyo safe ka na.
Yeah. Well,
yung problem kasi namin is there is no published version of the story that we can find, and we looked everywhere. So CCP talaga yung best step namin.
So you heard it from them, pero wala kayo recording?
No. We found cultural performances of the story on YouTube. That's the closest thing we have, but there's no official written record po.
Okay.
Okay. So
yung cultural video na ba yun ay from a reliable na nag-record?
Students po.
Students. Di ba tatanggapin yun as kung students naman, kung document man siya ng school? Di ba? Kasi technically valid resource.
Of course, hindi ang mangyayari yun siguro, I guess, my opinion is like, if it's possible lang, like if there is the name of the school, and then we can inquire na parang saan ang galing yung parang saan ang galing yung source ninyo ng kwento, ng dance ninyo, yung ganon, para at least
try namin yun.
Pero actually, mga video yung mga video, kasi kumbaga makita mo sila in action yung the story as they tell it eh. Magandang action research yung video. Kailangan lang syempre, ma-document kung saan nagmula yung video, tsaka nga, reliability ng source. For example, kung school yung pinrefer sa school, tingin ko pasok na siya, di ba?
Unless may creative license na ginawa ng school, hindi natin alam. So, those things lang.
So, cultural performance to, it's not a written or it's not like talked about or hindi siya told. So, it's more of your version is inspired by this cultural performance. Tama ba?
Several cultural performances po, yes.
Okay. Sige. We'll check on yung ganyang situation.
Pero yun nga, our ideal talaga is to be able to work with at least one Kalinga tribe.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I really hate to like, ang dami-dami nating napag-uusapan, di ba? Ang dami-daming pwedeng pag-usapan sa ginagawa natin. Ngunit it's already 6:35 and we have like 4 more groups. So thank you, Sir Marco. Sorry we had to cut this short. We need to move on. So next up is Ma'am Annabelle for Sun Says, Moon Says. So you may present your pitch whenever you're ready. Or well, right now.
Yes. Wait, let me just share my screen. Can everyone see?
Yes, po.
All right. Okay, I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible so we can take our break. So hi everyone, my name is Annabelle, and my project is called Sun Says, Moon Says, the celestial drama that created the cycle of night and day. So my project is going to be a retelling of the folktale, The Sun and the Moon, and my target reading audience are teenagers who are interested in slice of life drama stories with a bit of a fantasy setting. My project goals are to retain the original spirit of the folktale while putting my own twist on it, and also to encourage interest in reading other folk tales as well as in Philippine history, specifically the pre-colonial period, because that's where I draw a lot of my inspiration from for the visuals of the story. So before I get into my story, I'd like to talk a bit about the source material. So The Sun and the Moon actually has several versions. And I chose three versions because they are found in the same book, Philippine Folktales by Mabel Cook Cole. So just the convenience of it. And I chose these three because they also, they share the same story beats. So they unfold in pretty much the same way, which is that we have the sun who is male and the moon who is female. They have some sort of argument or disagreement, and the story ends with the sun and the moon like chasing each other around the world. And this is how pre-colonial Filipinos explained the cycle of night and day. So on the screen, I have just a summary of how each version unfolds. Tapos on the other side is a Venn diagram graphic with all of the important story beats. So some of them share the same story beats, and these story beats are what compose the bones of my story. So I use this as the basis of my story. So what is my story? So my elevator pitch for it is: the child of the sun and the moon asks why the two of them are never home at the same time and receives two different yet similar stories. So these 7 points on the side are my outline because I was asked to give a more detailed like story beats of the project. And they are structured according to basic story structure. So point number 1 is the functions as like a prologue, and as the elevator pitch begins, it begins with the child of the sun and the moon asking that question to the sun and the moon, because in this story they're a married couple and they share the same household, but for some reason it's always one or the other who is at home. So the child, being a child, is very curious. So the sun and the moon sit the child down and say, okay, this is the story of our relationship. Point number 2 through 6 are basically one long flashback where we hear the story of their relationship. So point number 2 is like the setup exposition of the story. So here we find out important information about who these two characters are, how they met, how they fell in love, and then eventually decided to build a home together. Here we'll find out important information like what each of them values the most, and also something that they admire about the other person, a quality that they admire. Point number 3 is where the conflict of the story gets introduced, which is that the relationship begins to deteriorate because of neglect on both of their parts. So this part I view, or I imagine it will be like a series of anecdotes where each character kind of takes the spotlight for a while and then tells a story about how the other character annoyed them or, did something that they didn't like. And I thought it would be interesting if I took the thing in point number 2, the thing that they admire about the other person, it becomes the thing that now annoys them about the other person in point number 3. So basically a series of just unfortunate encounters between these two characters, which build up to point number 4, which is the climax of the story, where these two characters have a big explosive argument. So whatever it is that we find out that they valued in point number 2 becomes threatened by the other person. And here is where the result of that is the moon leaving the shared household and the rift between the two characters being the widest it's ever been, not just emotionally now, but also physically. So point number 5, when we enter it, it's the falling action. So what happens after the climax? So the moon is just keeping her distance from the sun, like in the original folktale. And the sun wants to apologize, but she won't let him approach. So he finds parang a workaround. He starts leaving her letters and trying to start like a long distance communication. And after some time, it works. She responds. And this is where we enter point number 6, which is the recovery stage of the story, where they rebuild their relationship slowly through this, this new form of communication. So they find that it gives them enough space to parang reset and then to like examine the relationship and then to reconnect. So they eventually decide that, it's this is what works for the relationship, even if they're not always together. So they just continue on with it. And that's how we end in point number 7, where we're back in the present with their kid. And they tell their child, well, we know it's a little weird that you don't see us together all the time, but you don't have to worry because our relationship is so much better than before. So, okay, so these are my sample pages. It's very rough. I tried to keep the speech bubbles clear because I'm trying for a device here where a storytelling device where the audience is the child of the sun and the moon. So it's like the sun and the moon are talking to us. And I wanted to tell the story in this way because I wanted there to be equal weights between the two sides of the story. Because this is about the relationship, and I wanted there to be, I want the audience to be able to connect to both these characters. So I have 3 pages here, and the 3 pages cover points 1 and a little bit of point number 2. And I think another thing I think that I wanted these pages to convey was the tone that I'm going for as the storyteller, because my outline is it focuses on the drama, the meat of the story, but there's actually a lot of room for humor, and I intend to use humor as like a buffer to keep the story entertaining before we get to the serious parts of the relationship. And also for page number 3, as you can see, I did like a rough color study of it. This is to show how I intend to use color to help show who is speaking, to distinguish between the narrators. So the characters will be color coded: orange for the sun, blue for the moon, gray for the human characters. Yeah. Okay. So what is different in my retelling of this story? I think the biggest difference is that I took the folktale and I tried to give it more dimension, because as I mentioned before, it is very bare bones. And the conflict between the two characters. So when I first read the folk tales, and I was surprised to find that there were several versions of them, personally, I felt really sad because I wanted there to be some sort of resolution for these characters, because we see the sun and the moon every day. It's kind of sad to think of them as just this couple who never got along at the end, and they're just perpetually chasing each other around Earth. So yeah, I decided to give a resolution to this story. I tried to flesh out the characters a bit more so that so that there's more interest building around the eventual conflict of the story. And I tried to give the story a more hopeful, positive ending. Yeah. So about cultural authenticity, I decided to focus most of my research on the 3 ethnic groups where the versions of the folktale I'm using originate. So the Tinggian, Mandayan, and Visayan ethnic groups. And because the folktale is like an origin story, I focused on the pre-colonial period of Philippine history. And I actually was able to do a research trip to the National Museum of Anthropology, which kind of sparked a lot of ideas in my head. And turned up a lot of interesting things I didn't know before about pre-colonial Filipinos. Like, for example, they're very skilled metal workers, and they created a lot of what do you call this, gold accessories and objects that are very well made and very very specialized. So I thought it would be interesting if I could incorporate things like that into my story, just to kind of give new readers insight into what that period in our history was like, what we could do as a people back then. So mood board, just a couple of things that I turned up in my research. So character designs. This is the second to the last slides, or almost there. So my characters are, I would say in terms of character design, I try to go for a more simplified style, mostly for practical reasons, because I'll be having to replicate these designs over a couple of pages. So this is what is manageable for me at my skill level. And also I have a background in animation. I used to animate for children's cartoons. So I'm very much influenced by the art style found in Western cartoons, like those from Disney Channel, Cartoon Network. So I try to incorporate the clean silhouettes and just use a lot of simple shapes as the basis for the design. And this is my last slide. So the main location of this story is the home of the sun and the moon. And it is my interpretation of a part of Philippine mythology where for the Filipinos of that time, they believed that the gods lived on this plane that was not completely inaccessible to humans. So I thought it would be interesting if they lived on this floating island with a little bahay kubo just above Earth where the human tribes live. And yeah, that's it. So
Okay.
this is my last slide.
Again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so just to start things off. Okay, so I find this project really, really interesting because it is a total contrast. It's a total contrast from all the discussions that we've had about authenticity and, and having things signed off. Because number one, as you mentioned, Annabelle, diba? This is like a bare bones story. Wala siyang meat masyado. So kumbaga, you had to exercise so much creative liberty in order to like add things inside. So that's number one. Number two, you're talking about three really distinct, indigenous peoples. Tinggian from Ilocos, then you have the Bisaya, then you have the Mandayan from Davao. Diba? So kumbaga, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Saan tayo kukuha? Saan tayo huhugot ng authenticity when it comes to visuals? Sinong susundan natin? And thirdly, your beat structure is Aristotelian, diba? It's from it's basic Greek Aristotelian rising action climax, falling action denouement. It's Greek it's Greek tragedy structure. So yung ganon. So total opposite. It's a great example of you taking something that's bare bones and really expanding it into something that's substantial. Now, we go back now to that question. Ayin, anong comment ngayon natin dito pagdating sa authenticity?
Ako na naman.
Oo, kasi ikaw yung punong abala.
Saka nagmamatter ang opinion ng CCP.
Yeah.
Wala na si Sir Ben natin, training lang po kami. We shall check with them in terms of this. Kasi as in concern nga rin ito. Kasi parang in terms of direction for references and authenticity. Because CCP has not, issued a guideline in terms of how to go about, executing this authenticity angle. We're finding it hard. So I'll go back to we will get and try to get from them a reference on how they define authenticity. I'll discuss with them itong mga issues na to na nagka-come up so that they'd have references and how they can what they will decide on in terms of your creative liberties.
Okay. Thank you so
So
much.
yan, yun na yung pinaka-diplomatic na masasagot ko.
And a very nice yes. Anyone? Sinong who's is anyone talking? Is that Ethel? Are you speaking or or wala? So anyone has comments on Annabelle's pitch?
Gusto ko yung art. Nakakatuwa yung art.
Oh,
Oo.
thank you so much.
Oo. Diba,
Oo.
ang
Yeah.
ganda nga ng contrast ng mga art styles natin. Meron
Oo,
tayo yung pang
actually.
pang action adventure, tapos meron tayong pang romance cutesy ganyan. So ang ganda ng diversity
Oo.
ng mga art styles natin.
Yes.
Ayan,
Pwedeng,
go on.
pwedeng
Yes.
humingi ng spoiler ng onte.
Oh, sure.
Because you mentioned that the relationship deteriorates, right? And what they admired about each other becomes a source of irritation. How do you plan on showing that? Kasi yun nga, si Moon is confident and sociable. How does that become a bad thing for Sun?
Okay, so my basis for this is, I believe, the Tingyan version, which is actually the shortest because it only has like 3 lines. But it was enough to sort of I found it interesting because there was so much personality that they gave the characters in that version. And so basically, in that version of the story, the sun and the moon have this argument, and the sun they basically just trade insults. So what the sun says to the moon is, "Oh, you're so useless. You're not as strong as me when it comes to providing light for humans. Like, you rely on me to help you provide light for the humans." And the clap back of the moon was, "Oh, well, the human women like me better because working under you is like working under your sweltering heat is really uncomfortable for them." And that folktale ends with the sun kind of being irritated by the moon and just kicking sand in her face or something. But anyway, my point is that I thought it would be interesting if, based on those lines, it sounded like the son was more hardworking or like more interested in like the work. Because in this story, the reason why the sun and the moon exist is they were sent by the higher gods to provide light for the human characters. So the sun is the stronger one because he kind of invests more time in it. And in my story, he's actually a metal worker. So he has a forge on that little island that they share, and he creates metal accessories because he likes doing that. It's like his hobby. And meanwhile, the moon is very sociable. Like her insult, like, "The women like me better." The way I saw it was, well, maybe she likes interacting. Like, she's friendlier than the sun. She interacts with the humans more. So I made her more of a sociable personality. And that's the thing that they admire about each other. So the moon admires the sun's skill, metalworking skill, and that he's so dedicated to it. And the sun admires the moon's her ability to make friends very easily. And how that turns into something that irritates them about each other is they each view that quality as something that takes time away from spending time with each other. So for the moon, she's like, "Well, you spend too much time in your forge. You don't invest enough time in our relationship. When I want to do something, you're always just there, and I can't talk to you." So that's the beginning of the cracks for her. For the sun naman, it's kind of the same thing, but it's more like you're always spending time with the humans. So I can never get you alone and like, to hang out and spend time together. So it's like a series of misunderstandings based on those two traits. So yeah.
Cool. Parang I'm getting marriage story vibes. Ang saya.
Yeah. Yeah. Except they kind of, and they work it out in the end.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, you're welcome.
And what I find also interesting, Annabelle, you mentioned that the sun actually says, "I give you the light." Tama ba?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a very scientific concept, di ba? Parang
Yeah.
would they have known back then na it is actually the sun giving light to the moon, di ba? Yung mga tipong ganon.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah. So it's just very interesting, like very bare bones, but I feel like I was able to get a lot to kind of fill the gaps of this story. So yeah, I enjoyed the flexibility of the bare bonesness of the source material.
Mm. Ayun. So, Mitch says yung sinasabi ni Annabelle about the Tinggian Sun Moon legend is caused by lands, which are usually women, converse to the moon. They draw power from her.
Oh,
Ayun. So,
I didn't know
yan.
that.
O,
I'm
diba?
copying. I'm
Marami
gonna
mga,
keep that.
marami
Thank you,
mga
Mitch.
aspeto. Ganyan. So,
Yeah.
any other comments about Annabelle's story? Anyone can jump in.
Eh,
Because it,
nagme-message yata doon sa chat. Ito po yun,
yeah,
yung draw power from her.
yeah, so we mentioned that. And then yeah, yung mga bare bone stories, so much opportunity for character studies talaga.
Yeah.
Tama yan.
To be honest, I also didn't have a lot of time to develop a story before the May 30th deadline. So I purposely chose something that was simple so that I could make it in time for the deadline.
Pero,
yeah.
pero kaching for you. Okay,
so this is very exciting for me.
Yeah. So Mick asked, how different is it from the Apolaki and Mayari myth?
Oh, wait. Which myth is that? The Tagalog?
Well, Apolaki and Mayari, I think they're Pampanga. I'm not sure.
Yes po, Pampanga.
Yeah, they're Pampanga.
I think po yung main difference niya is yung sa naaalala ko po is Bathala died in that story, and then yung will niya is pinasa niya kay Apolaki and Mayari, and then Apolaki wanted na siya lang ang mag-rule over Earth while Mayari wanted equal rights. Yun yung pinakamalaking difference.
Also,
and then Mayari loses an eye.
Yeah. And the sun and the moon are brother and sister in that one. There's also a version where they're both brothers, and there's a version where they're both sisters. So it was super interesting to kind of delve a little deeper because there were so many different versions of the story. Yeah.
Okay. So I really hate to cut this
Okay.
discussion short. I'm sorry. It's like almost 7 and we have 3 more. Is it okay for everyone to extend? Kahit hanggang 8. Okay lang yon, Miss Ayin? Are we good?
Okay po siguro, or mag-ano po muna, mag-dinner break ba muna or ano?
Oh, what ano? I'll leave it to
Working. Pwede bang working para we just go through everything?
Pwede naman.
Working dinner.
So how much time, Miss Ayin, would you like to for the pause? How long?
Are we pausing or are we just pushing through while we're having dinner together?
Kasi people will have to go to the kitchen and get something.
That's true. Okay. How much time is needed? Kasi we can keep this going and then you can just come back. Kasi like the training team will we'll just leave it. We'll be staying here.
Will everyone get the recording ba of this session?
Depends on you, sir. If you'd like to have it shared with everyone.
Oh, it
so
would
that
be nice. Yeah, it would be
okay.
nice for them to review. Ganyan.
Yeah, and may express permission na tayo ni sir.
So sige, so what's gonna happen is, pwede kayong lumabas ng room as we continue to grab whatever you want. And then anyway, you will be getting a copy of this this session for your review. Okay? So, to proceed, we will now go to number 5. Let's have Sir Alfred Galarosa who will present Sinogo. Sir
Hello
Alfred.
Can you hear me?
Yes po.
Yes.
Okay. Wait po. Share screen. Open up. Hello? Nakita mo?
Nakita mo, Ayin, yung presentation ni Sir? Okay. Okay. Ako, I can see it now. May view options pala sa taas na okay. How about the rest? Can you see Sir Alfred's presentation?
Can see it now, yeah.
Okay. Sige, Sir
Okay.
Alfred.
Okay. And then again, I apologize for my Tagalog because I'm not that fluent.
Oh, carry lang, sir. Carry lang.
Okay, I'll be using English for this. Maybe a mix of Taglish something. Okay.
Sige po.
Okay. Thank you again for CCP for giving me opportunity to be in this grant. And I'm Alfred. I'm an illustrator, also known as Art of Idoy from Cebu. I also make artwork for my interpretation based on Philippine mythology, like this. I usually draw the moon eaters, and I pick up the story of the faithlessness of Sinugo, um, because it's based on our archipelago, somewhere off the north coast of Mindanao, as somewhat strong current begins to travel northward. It runs to the island of Siquijor and then uh, slightly to the east goes racing between islands of Cebu and Negros. And that explained the legend of whirlpools, as the legend says, which is caused by the creature struggling to free himself in the depths of the ocean floor. And my sources are in the internet, and this is actual book. I found it online, and the thesis, I didn't find any related of the folk tales about, but uh, there are related deities that are involved in the folklore. And then again, about Mangwayan, there is no gender fluidity. And about Jean Carl Gurbasa, yeah, and he's from the spirits of the Filipino Archipelago, and he usually posts in the Facebook about our myths. And there are plenty you need to know about our Philippine creatures and other common. Other than that, as we all know today as tikbalang and so on. Okay. And also, okay. This is my summary of the story. It is inspired by John Maurice Miller, The Fatalities of Sinugo. The source of ocean activities causes the creation of whirlpools between Cebu and Negros. There was a disaster in the thousands of years. One of the three messengers named Sinugo betrays his own master captain, the god of the sky, whom he stole the golden shell and transformed him into a giant crocodile and met his demise upon breaking his oath from the heaven. And this is are the characters. Captain. Uh, I made him look like this. He is the king of the heavens and also governs the earth, air, and sea. And all the creatures of the sky are peaceful, for they feared him. And Magwayan is the brother of Captain. And also, his years, Magayan developed a fear of creatures because of their size and my Tomastasia. And also the three messages of Captain and Sinogo, the most handsome among the three, that Dalagan, the swiftest, and Kedala, the bravest among the three. And also the creatures of the story. Uh, for the creature, they did mention the name of what they describe it. They describe some kind of type of mythical being that fierce and gigantic. But the Maliliu is a creature of the Visayas, although it is not mentioned on the book. But I decided to include that one for educational purposes. And another mention of the story, this is where Captain announces his decree. And one of them appear as creatures. They are mentioned stickball and sigbins, onglogs, and wakwaks, and other frightful creatures. And also, this is the outline of the story. The story. Okay. maybe the estimate of the pages of my comic, it's maybe 50 above. I don't know, because there are I did a lot of action scenes. And okay, the first act, the story begins with Gwen, the god of the sea. The creature of the ocean began to disrespect Mangwayan. However, due to his constant fear of the ocean, due to his constant fear, he asked help for Captain. And second act, Captain agrees to help his brother Magwayan and summon his messengers to call every creatures of the land and sea on the Kawali Island for he announced for where he announced his decree. And the third act, Sinogo stole Captain's the golden shell and fled, and Magwayan learned about Sinogo evil deeds, and and Captain sent his messenger to capture him. And at the end of the story, as the changes move on, Captain pinned Sinogo in the bottom of the sea, and thus, as the legend says, thus creating whirlpools between Negros and Cebu. And the characters' designs and sketches, and here he's a much taller compared to the mortal size, and Magwayan is the god of the sea, and Sinogo there, and Dalagan, Kidala, and the location design, it's based on the coral reefs, just to give it more somewhat like the element of fear of just like a deep underwater, to just plunge in the deep underwater. And also there is a beauty and wetness of the sea. And Captain's kingdom, yeah, in the story, they what about this one? It didn't mention what the the kingdoms look like, but it is part of the story. It's he lives in the clouds, and that's where his kingdom said. And I added the story for the other gods of the Philippine mythology visiting of Captain's kingdom, just for like go into the mall or something, exploring some of the beauty of there, and meeting of the god of the sky. And this is where Captain announced his decree for his brother Mangwayan. And sample pages, and there, and this is the updated version, so I made it color. Okay, and here, and yeah, and this is the cover page and the back page, and also the storyboards here. And that's it.
Okay na po?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Sige. Thank you so much for that, Sir Alfred.
I really apologize for
no, it's okay. It's okay. Claro naman po. So,
okay.
Just to kick things off lang, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So, number
Yes.
one, what I find interesting here is that the concept of angels. I mean, your characters look like angels.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I personally don't know if that's an actual thing sa ano natin, sa ethnic stories natin. Kasi what you're showing on screen, yung kay Miller, I don't know if it is like their interpretation of yung their visual representation of our story. Like, is it really angel ba talagang itsura ng ano ng sina Sinogo? So that's number one. Number two, just note lang, it's like everything's in color, right? You're doing things in color.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I was just worried about the character designs of the three brothers kasi na they look pretty much similar to each other.
Okay.
So kumbaga, if there's a way like to differentiate them,
Sure.
so that they'll be different from each other. Now, when it comes to the story, why do you think Sinogo is interested in the shell?
For what I understand, he wants to become powerful, just like captains.
Okay, and there's no reason given. Is there a reason given why he wants to be powerful?
Somewhat for the based on the folklores, there is no specific reasons for Sinogo to to have his schemes like that, and thus he wants to rule the sea and air, just like Captain did.
I see.
Yes.
No, the reason why I'm asking is because, in the description of Sinogo, you mentioned there that Sinogo is the handsomest.
Yes.
And then the other two, you have one who's the swiftest and one who is the bravest. So the only thing that Sinogo has is face value. So, so I'm thinking it's like, is it possible that Sinogo wants the golden shell and be powerful because Dalagan and Gitala tell him, you're nothing but you're only handsome. You have no purpose. You have no purpose for us. You're not a warrior. You're only a face.
Discriminated because of his looks, no?
And then it's so hard to be handsome. And that's my suggestion. Maybe like if you want to give a reason for Sinogo to actually want the shell, maybe he wants power because he's actually powerless. He only has a face.
Napaka-insecure niya.
That's right. So that's a possibility for you. That's just my suggestion if you want to. So
sure.
Yes. So anyone else can dive in with their comments or questions?
Hindi, at least po, sir, at least sa idea ng mga angels, at least yung sa Mindanao po, syempre yung mga nag-convert to Islam po siya, at least may mga concept ng angels na. Kumbaga, yung other parts na syempre na hindi Mindanao, syempre nung naging Christianized na ang Pilipinas, tsaka nagkaroon ng concept ng angels.
Okay.
So, di ko lang po sure kung yung syempre, kung yung rendition ng angels dito, may idea na yung mga angels ng mga Bisaya, based on sa mga nakakwento siguro sa Mindanao. Di ko lang po sure.
Okay. So, do you think a recommendation would be for Sir Alfred to try another look? Para lang hindi since the only reference we have to the angel look is the one by Miller So parang is it possible for Sir Alfred to actually like mag-design ka na ng your own interpretation of these characters?
Yeah. I would agree because the idea of angels is very Western. I don't think we have men flying with wings na that's inherent to our culture.
Or unless po, kumbaga, para mga Garuda, kasi kumbaga nga, nakuha natin mula sa Angel Infantry mga Garuda, which is way before.
Pero yung interpretation pa rin nila is still different from like this na it's human with just wings, So, yun lang din. Ideally, kasi I'm thinking it might have been, the Western perspective or their Western interpretation of how this story was. So, I'm just wondering if you could also do more research in terms of that for this specific story. Yung visualization.
Okay. Yeah.
Visualization lang.
Sir Mick suggests baka taong lawin sila. Mulawin for short. So I guess that's open for interpretation. Now the look, maybe like parang take some hints from Visayan costume and then run away with your creativity when it comes to interpreting what they look like. But the art is lovely. It's very cinematic yung yung mga shots mo in your comic.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. So anyone else wanna comment? This is Visayan, Sir Nick. Am I correct, Sir Alfred?
Yes,
This
is from the
Cebu
Visayas.
Negros.
Cebu Negros, yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyone else can comment? This
Clarify
one,
lang
I love this one.
Clarify lang sir na para sa sabi nga niya ni Sir Carver you can take our advice o hindi. Kumbaga, gusto mo parang ituloy yung angel na part, okay rin lang by the way. For considerations pa lang.
Okay, sir. Okay, go on, sir.
Ayun lang. I just love these. These are like, pelikula siya. Ganyan.
Ako, nakikita ko kasi dyan, parang sila parang bird people rather than angels eh. Yun yung dating. Ganun yung, kaya ako nabanggit na baka taong lawin sila or some type of birdman.
As the book describes, sir, there are winged giants.
Okay.
Okay. That explains it nga. Baka nga ganun nga. Sila more like bird.
Yeah, more like angel or something.
Yeah.
And the book describes is their wings are huge. Something like that.
Kasi if papasok mo yung element na angels, dapat sila eh, parang entity sila rather than parang giant di ba?
Oh, yeah. They're winged giants.
So
yes.
baka
okay.
Since giant nga, baka mas leaning into sila, bird element rather than angel nga.
Or it's very possible also, since we're looking at the character designs in black and white, they look like angels. Pero when you look at the design, meron sila mga tattoos and whatnot, baka pag kinolor na ni Sir Alfred, magmumukha talaga silang bumulawin. Like, yeah,
that
one.
In the first place po, di naman white yung wings nila na parang
yeah, that's true. Okay, sige. Yeah.
And also, sir, I'm planning to have their wings like what do you call this one? Each of them has different patterns of the wings. So yeah, maybe Sinogo it's a brown one. Maybe Gidala is somewhat a little green or something like that. But
yeah. Basta as long as si Sinogo talaga the handsomest, ha?
Yes.
We have to believe that he's the handsomest. Kasi walang point.
Handsome pero pinakamalamya.
Oo, di ba? Siya yung handsome pero pinakamalamya, ganyan. So, okay. Anyone else?
About the character design po. Because I agree that I really love the paneling because it's very cinematic. But what's hard for me is distinguishing who the characters are. I feel like even if with the colors it would be hard. So if you could vary it a little bit, like maybe your main character is Sinogo. Maybe he can have the long hair, tapos the other two have shorter hair. I think
okay.
Or body type.
Or different body types. It could speak to what they're good at. So one is brave, one is swift. So maybe the swift one can be more leaner body type. The braver one can be more muscular,
Okay.
Yeah. So just in terms of silhouette, it would be, I think, easier for me as the reader to see who's on the page and to understand that it's that character. Because if I don't know who the character is, your pages, like the way it unfolds, it's like a movie. Yeah. So just to make it clearer who the character is in the panels. Like,
okay.
Yeah, But everything else is like, I really want to read this stuff.
I love this. Shots.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Or we're okay na? Yeah, the color work is really great. Mitch says that maybe try different kinds of wings. Maybe not like bird wings, maybe some other kind of wing. Pero yung nga eh, di ba, the challenge there
Okay,
is
okay.
yeah, the challenge there is, for example, if you give them bat wings, it might misconstrue to mean that they're evil. Di ba yung ganon? Yung we're working with those kinds of visual ano. Pero yun, pero yun nga,
Okay,
it's
okay.
but then yun nga, it's your call. It's your call. You know, basing it off lang on ano, what you think is best. Ayan. So, I guess ano, it's 7:22.
Yes. And
So
we were
yeah, so Ayin,
yeah, we were thinking, would you rather we break for 30 minutes so everybody can get food and then come back 30 minutes after, probably around 8? So we can just continue on with like how many more? Dalawa pa, no?
dalawa na lang.
Oo. So yon. I'm sorry it's taking so long, pero kasi ang dami din natin na pag-uusapan.
It's a very interesting discussion. I hope everyone has been enjoying the session so far.
Tsaka ang dami talaga mga pino-point out na mga ano, ba yung mga di natin na-realize ng una, di ba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Would you prefer that or continue lang tayo? So, hand raise. Sino yung gusto mag-break muna for 30 minutes?
hand raise tayo.
Ah,
Ako hindi ako mag-raise kasi I'm like whatever.
neutral tayo.
Oo.
Yung training team at saka. So, 1, 2. Alright. So, 1, 2, 3 participants raise their hands. Yes. Anybody has a suggestion?
And also, I almost forgot. I have the script also.
You have the?
Oh, you have the script na.
Yes.
Okay.
It's written in English and I don't know one of the judges. I forgot his name to be translated in Basaya, but the English is already finished. But I do what do you call this? It's already the English is already finished, but the Visayan version is in progress pa.
Okay lang.
Okay.
That's
No
fine.
problem.
Mm-mm.
Oo.
Okay.
Okay. So may tatlo na gustong mag-break. And then there's 4, I guess. Kasi hindi kami
Yeah.
counted. Or
Yeah.
5. Kasi there's ano. So I'm thinking, dun sa tatlo na gustong mag-break muna, you can just go ahead. Are you once, nakapag-present na ba yung mga nag-raise ng hand? Para if ever.
Isa sa
Kasi
mga
you guys.
mag-present pa, yung naka-raise ang hand.
Okay. So dun sa dalawa, yung isa mag-represent pa. So guys, wala. We'd have to defer to dun sa mag-represent pa. Kung aalis sila, wala talaga tayo makikita.
Okay, so we're continuing.
I'm thinking we'd have to take a break because sino ba yung mag-represent pa?
Miss Ethel and si Sir Julius.
Okay. So I guess it's based on Miss Ethel and Sir Julius.
Yeah.
Will you be staying or would you like to take a break muna?
To Miss Ethel and Sir Julius.
Kasi mukhang everybody else, what do you call this? G lang. As in, go
Sige,
lang.
Defer ako sa judgment, G lang. Kasi kumakain man ako anyway eh.
Okay. Ayan.
Sige, baka syempre, baka gustong magmahinga rin muna. Mag-refresh ng utak. Kasi ang daming, baka info overload.
Sige. How about 10 minutes?
Sige, a 10-minute break
mas okay
might be
na.
better.
Okay.
Sige, so let's have a 10-minute break.
Coffee break.
I mean, anytime because we'll be here anyway. Hindi na namin i-close.
Yeah.
Right? So, yan. So if you just shut your video for now. And then
7:35, we'll be back.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
Recording stopped.